Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today, I'm going to do my review of Monday Night Raw. Starting out tonight, we have John Cena. John Cena comes out to the ring, grabs a microphone. Before he even says anything, though, he is quickly interrupted by none other than Cody Rhodes. Rhodes comes out to the ring, grabs a microphone. He mocks John Cena. Rhodes also mentions Stardust, which was another character that Cody Rhodes had in his previous tenure in WWE. He was kind of making fun of it in the aspect of telling John that it is kind of funny that John is going to be main eventing this year's WrestleMania against someone that was formerly known as Stardust. Rhodes then pretty much, like I said, mocks himself, mentions the neck tattoo that he got. Rhodes then mentions AEW. Rhodes says that the last 2 weeks John lied to the fans. John says that Rhodes has been protected by higher-ups in WWE. John says that he's going to bury Rhodes. Cena then calls Rhodes his chauffeur, his lackey. Cena then calls Rhodes underwhelming. Cena then calls Rhodes a common fan, and that's all he's ever going to be. Cena then says Rhodes was his errand boy who got lucky. Rhodes then mocks Vince McMahon. Rhodes says that Cena is a company creation. Rhodes says that out of the two of them, Cena is the only one that's sold out to The Rock. The crowd erupted after that. Rhodes says that John is a piece of shit. Cena then says that he stayed while Rhodes left. And when the times got tough for John, John still stayed. John says that he had made empires for billionaires, while Cody had just stole money from their kids. Again, another AEW reference. Rhodes says that at all the times he's been in WWE, the fans have never asked him or told him that he couldn't wrestle. This pissed John Cena off. Cena then goes back to the ring. Cena and Rhodes get face to face. Cena then goes to attack Rhodes, but Rhodes ends up hitting a crossroads on Cena, laying Cena out in the middle of the ring. Some interesting stuff there between John Cena and Cody Rhodes. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's a New Day against a mystery tag team. Adam Pearce comes out to the ring, grabs a microphone. Pearce announces that it will be the New Day taking on Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne. This was Tyler Bate's return match. He's been out with injury for quite some time. The match itself was a good match. Back and forth matchup between the New Day, Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, with Dunne and Bate keeping the pace of the match. Tyler Bate hits an airplane spin on Kofi in the middle of the ring. Kofi then gets up, hits an SOS on Pete Dunne for a near fall, but the New Day end up hitting the finish. Pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are the New Day. After the match, they walk up the ramp. They were conducting an interview, and all of a sudden they were calling out the War Raiders. The War Raiders responded. They came out to the ramp, if you will, got face-to-face with Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. And it looks like Kofi and Xavier Woods are possibly going to be challenging the War Raiders for the WWE World Tag Team titles. Moving on from that, we got Jimmy Uso taking on Gunther. I thought this was a great match. Back and forth matchup between Jimmy and Gunther, with Gunther keeping the pace of the match. Gunther then hits a powerbomb on Jimmy in the middle of the ring. Gunther then applies a sleeper hold on Jimmy Uso. The referee sounds for the bell, and your winner of the match is Gunther. After the match, Gunther then attacks Jimmy Uso. Jey Uso comes out to the ring to attack Gunther. Gunther then attacks Jey. Gunther then attacks WWE security. I think he actually landed a powerbomb on one of the members of the security team for WWE. Gunther then zip ties Jey to the ropes. Gunther then attacks Jimmy as Jey watches on. Gunther then mocks Jey. Gunther then hits Jimmy with the title. Jimmy is now busted wide open. And then Gunther hits a powerbomb on Jimmy Uso while Jey Uso watches on. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's a tag team matchup. It is Penta and Braun Breaker teaming up to take on the Judgment Day. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Penta, Breaker, and the Judgment Day, with Penta and Breaker keeping the pace of the match. Braun then goes for a spear, but ends up hitting Penta instead, which allowed Finn Balor to hit a coup de grace off the top rope. Pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are the Judgment Day. Hats off to the Judgment Day for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into a Logan Paul and AJ Styles segment. AJ Styles is already in the ring. Logan Paul makes his way out to the ring. Logan then mocks AJ Styles. Logan says that he forgives AJ. AJ then says he forgives Logan. Logan asks why AJ forgives him. AJ says that he forgives Logan for being the biggest douchebag in professional wrestling. Logan then says London is poor, mocks the fans. Logan then wants a match with AJ Styles at WrestleMania. AJ then attacks Logan Paul, but Logan ends up hitting a pulverizer on AJ in the middle of the ring, leaving AJ helpless in the middle of the ring. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's the main event of Monday Night Raw. It is a special, it's Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley with special guest referee Bianca Belair for the Women's World Title. I thought it was a good match, man. Back and forth matchup between Io and Rhea, with Io trying to keep the pace of the match. Rhea then hits a Razor's Edge, followed by a running knee on Io for a near fall. Rhea then goes to hit Io, but missed and took out Bianca Belair with a big boot. Rhea then hits a Riptide on Io Sky for a near fall. Rhea then attacks Belair. Io then goes for a drop kick, but missed and hit Belair. Belair then sounds for the bell. Match ends in a double disqualification. After the match, Rhea then attacks Belair. Io then hits a moonsault to the outside, taking out Rhea and Bianca. But Rhea then hits a Riptide on Belair in the middle of the ring. And it looks like that match will happen at WrestleMania, a triple threat matchup for the Women's World Title. A couple of things I want to talk about, man, when it pertains to Monday Night Raw before I get up out of here. Number one, was it a solid show? Yeah. I'm going to be brutally honest, man. You know, last week I came on here and I told you guys that, you know, the WrestleMania fatigue was starting to set in. And what I mean by that is that we were getting the same shit consistently, whether it was, Jey Uso and Gunther. We really weren't getting that much from, John Cena and Cody Rhodes. A lot of the build-up and storylines leading up to this year's WrestleMania just kind of fell flat. And they weren't really, there wasn't a lot of interest and intrigue going into this year's WrestleMania. Now, I didn't cover SmackDown show, but I know SmackDown also had a big moment with CM Punk and Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, where, CM Punk got his dream, where he will main event night one, taking on Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns in a triple threat match. But, like CM Punk said himself, that is not the favor that he had asked Paul Heyman. So again, some interesting stuff there from CM Punk. What I will say is this. From what we saw last night and what I gathered from last night, it felt as if WWE finally put their foot back on the gas pedal a little bit leading up to this year's WrestleMania, because we only have about maybe, 3.5 weeks left until this year's WrestleMania. And it's the biggest show of the year, man. It's the biggest professional wrestling show of the year. It's a Super Bowl for professional wrestling. And, the storylines and the intrigue and the interest need to be there. And we weren't getting that for the past, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks now for Monday Night Raw, especially the Gunther and Jey situation, which I will get into right now. I predicted this last week, that Gunther needed to come into this matchup with Jimmy and beat the holy hell out of Jimmy Uso. And, as pretty much leaving Jey helpless. And that's exactly what happened. Gunther ended up beating Jimmy. He secured the win. He was beating the hell out of Jimmy after the match. Jey comes down to the ring to try to save Jimmy, but Gunther ends up attacking Jey and then zip tying him to the ring ropes while Gunther is pretty much beating the piss out of Jimmy Uso, leaving him a bloody mess. And that's what needed to happen. This was going to be something where I told you guys last week that we needed to see a different side of Jey Uso. We needed to see something where, okay, this shit got intense now. This is Gunther is attacking his family, leaving Jimmy Uso in the middle of the ring a bloody mess. And this was something where I feel like they needed to do this to flip a switch with Jey, because Gunther has now made this personal for what he did to Jimmy Uso, pretty much laying him out in the middle of the ring as a bloody mess. This is what needed to happen in this storyline between Jimmy and Jey. Now, could it have happened a while ago? Yeah, but I'm glad that we got it now. It's got more intrigue to the matchup. I told you guys before last week that I didn't see Jey Uso and Gunther being a main event match for this year's WrestleMania, and it's not. Night 1 is going to be Punk, Rollins, and Reigns, and Night 2 is going to be Rhodes versus Cena. Gunther and Jey was not going to be a main event matchup for WrestleMania. The build wasn't there. The intrigue on the match wasn't there. It just wasn't there. But I will say this. Like I said, man, I think what happened with Gunther and Jey last night compared to what we got for the past couple weeks was great. Obviously, clearly Gunther sent a message to Jey. He made it personal with Jey by, what he did to Jimmy by attacking Jimmy Uso in the middle of the ring as Jey is watching on. So obviously, Gunther made it personal. And that's exactly what Jey needs to have. He needs this to be personal. We need to see an edgier Jey Uso. You know what I mean? With besides the whole yeet shit and everything else like that, we need to see a rougher around the edges Jey Uso. And he comes in like a bat out of hell going into WrestleMania, and he beats the hell out of Gunther and walks out World Heavyweight Champion. That's the Jey Uso that we need, and that's the Jey Uso that needs to happen in order for Jey to beat Gunther. Because like Jey said himself, he's 0-3 against Gunther. We need a different side of Jey that we haven't seen yet or haven't seen in a long time. And that's what we need at this year's WrestleMania when Jey takes on Gunther. So I thought, for what it's worth, the whole Jimmy Uso-Gunther matchup and how that played out, I thought was absolutely fantastic. I thought it was great. And I'm happy that there's a little bit more intrigue going into this matchup between Jey and Gunther. The other thing I want to talk about, obviously the big elephant in the room, is John Cena and Cody Rhodes. Now, I might be the only one that's probably on an island all by myself here when it pertains to Cody Rhodes and John Cena. And that's fine. But I will say this. It is the same thing how I feel about Jey and Gunther. Yeah, I was happy, man. I was ecstatic that, John Cena finally turned heel. Everybody was ecstatic. Everybody was like, holy shit, I cannot believe after about 25 years, John Cena finally turns heel after all this time. Everybody was, ecstatic about the idea of John turning heel. John's turned heel now, and we've got John Cena on Monday Night Raw for the past couple weeks opening the show, and it's been kind of the same thing for the past couple weeks where John's pretty much just pointing the finger at the fans. And, the hell with the fans, and the fans took this from him, and yada, 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 this, that, and the third. But there really wasn't a rebuttal between Cody and John until last night. What we got between Rhodes and Cena last night was probably the best thing that we've gotten so far between both those guys. Everybody was waiting for a back and forth banter there between Rhodes and John Cena. And a lot of people were worried and were wondering and speculating why we haven't seen John Cena and Cody Rhodes kind of have a face-to-face on the microphone. And a lot of people were speculating that, John probably would have cooked Rhodes on the microphone, and probably would have. I mean, for what it's worth, John Cena cut some of the best promos in the business. I mean, what he did to Roman Reigns in that one promo, man, he destroyed Roman. He dog-walked the hell out of Roman on that promo, at that one special event. I think it was Monday Night Raw years ago. And what he did to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson when he cut that promo on The Rock, when, The Rock was writing his promos, on his arm. I thought it was great. I mean, John Cena is goated on the microphone. So a lot of people were, and myself included, were wondering what was going to happen when John was given the microphone, finally got pissed off enough where he wanted to go at Cody Rhodes verbally, and how, what the rebuttal from Cody Rhodes was going to be. And Cody Rhodes, for what it's worth, man, he handled himself perfectly last night. I mean, he was shooting jabs at Cena. Cena was shooting jabs at Rhodes. Even to the point where both of these guys were kind of mocking each other. And even Rhodes was mocking himself for the neck tattoo, to the Stardust gimmick that he had when he was in WWE and his prior tenure with the company. So, I mean, obviously, and then calling, John Cena a piece of shit, and then hitting that crossroads on Cena in the middle of the ring. That was the best that we got from the storyline so far. Now, what I do know and what I gathered is that last night's Monday Night Raw was the last time that I believe we're going to see John Cena until WrestleMania. So a lot of people now are speculating what's going to happen next. Are we going to see Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson kind of fill the shoes now because John Cena is no longer going to be on Monday Night Raw? Are we going to see some rebuttal here back and forth between Dwayne and Cody Rhodes? Or is this just going to be Rhodes cutting some promos for the next couple of weeks leading up to this year's WrestleMania? Who knows? But what I will say is this. What we got between Rhodes and Cena last night was the best part of this storyline so far between Cena and Rhodes. And a lot of people were waiting to see what was going to happen, in a verbal matchup between Cena and Cody Rhodes, and we got it last night. I thought it was great, man. I thought it was, it was definitely, putting the match more in perspective for me. It's definitely gained a lot more excitement, and it's going to be a hell of a match, man. I mean, when this match was initially, happening, I told people that, for Cody, a lot of people were against it in the beginning, but Cody versus Cena. This could be something where Cena's passing the torch to Rhodes or vice versa. And now we have that Cena turn heel. It's a whole different ballgame right now. And to be honest with you, who knows? From what I understand, I heard John Cena is actually the favorite to win the matchup against Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania, which, again, I'm not against it. I'm not. I mean, it's history in the making for John. It's monumental for John to walk in WrestleMania and walk out 17-time World Heavyweight Champion, beating the record that he currently holds and ties with Ric Flair, being 16-time World Heavyweight Champion. It's a huge accomplishment for John. So, Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, and the way John's been talking about, bringing back the spinner title and mentioned the WWE Spinner Championship and walking out as their last real champion. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Cody Rhodes chase John for that World Heavyweight title. I wouldn't be against it. I wouldn't. I mean, you're kind of splitting hairs, but I mean, it's going to make for a hell of a match, man. And Cody Rhodes, if I hadn't said it enough by now, I'll say it, here and now. Cody Rhodes, number one, it's got to be an absolute gut punch to a guy like Tony Khan for seeing what Cody Rhodes is doing right now on WWE television. It's got to be a gut punch, number one. Number two, you want to talk about a guy that came in, obviously had some history with WWE that probably didn't go as well as he wanted it to go. He left WWE and went on his own and worked the independents in New Japan and made AEW, and he was wrestling for the competitor. And they brought him in. I mean, and it's been hell on wheels, literally, since Cody Rhodes has been back in WWE. I mean, they put the jetpack and strapped that jetpack to his back, and he took off to the moon. And he's really carrying this company right now on his back. And my hats go off to Cody Rhodes. But it's going to make for one hell of a match between Rhodes and Cena. There's a lot of different ways of looking at it. Is The Rock somehow going to get involved? I mean, and that's the other thing, too. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, I hope this bloodline shit ends after this whole Rhodes and Cena thing. To me, it's not. To me, there's still a match to make. And that match to make is Cody Rhodes versus The Rock, which could possibly happen in next year's WrestleMania. That match has to happen. And hopefully that match will happen because that story is still yet to be unfinished. Especially after what Rock did to Cody now and then with John turning heel. That's still yet to be unfinished between The Rock and Cody Rhodes, and I'm happy. Hopefully, they'll push that agenda leading up to next year's WrestleMania. But I'm all for the Cena and Rhodes match. I think it was great. But I mean, like I said, even with Monday Night Raw, there was small things that I wasn't really too keen on. Number one, I will say this: I'm happy to see Tyler Bate back. Tyler Bate's been off the scene for quite a while. I'm happy that Adam Pearce announced the return of Tyler Bate. And he looks like he never left. He looks great in the ring. Him and Pete Dunne teaming up. So, really good tag team. I look forward to the future for Tyler Bate on Monday Night Raw. The one thing I will say negatively that I took away from last night's show was the matchup for the main event. Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky. The issue that I have with this is this, man. I think what happened, and again, this is just my opinion, I feel as if WWE cannot book a WrestleMania and not have Rhea Ripley on it. And that's where we're at right now with this matchup. Me personally, I got no problem seeing Io Sky versus Bianca Belair for that Women's World Heavyweight Championship. I got no problem with that at all. I think the issue is the star power that Rhea Ripley brings into the fold for WWE. It would be hard for them to keep her off the card. And I think that's why they're pushing this narrative right now to have a triple threat match for the Women's World title. And I just feel like it's rushed. I feel like it's forced. I feel like it's just not warranted, to be honest with you. I mean, Rhea, she won last night. Or, I mean, honestly, she didn't win last night. It was double disqualification. And Io Sky beat her clean to win the Women's World title. So I don't know what the deal is with Rhea as far as her being a part of the WrestleMania scene this year. I mean, I get it in the aspect, like I said, the star power and who she is and what she represents for the women in WWE. I get it. But is the triple threat match needed? No, because we're already getting triple threat matches out the wazoo. We really are. I mean, if you look at, we're getting the main event night one between Punk, Reigns, and Rollins, which is going to be one hell of a match. You got a triple threat matchup for the Women's World title with Io, Bianca, and Rhea Ripley. There's been rumors or speculation about a possible fatal four-way for the Intercontinental title for Braun Breaker. I mean, there's a lot of multi-man matches on the card this year for WrestleMania. So it's just, to me, it's not needed. I think, Rhea could have took a step back and just had Io versus Bianca Belair for the Women's World title. I mean, I don't know. To me, it's not that, you got hatred towards Rhea. It's not that. I think Rhea's great. I think Rhea's fantastic. She's a great opponent. She's great in the ring. She cuts a great promo, and she does great and like I said, man, she does great in the ring, and she's a great women's champion. I just feel like the tide has turned, literally, for Rhea. Where, at this moment, Rhea and what she's going to do in the future is still kind of up in the air at this point. And I feel like WWE and Hunter right now don't know what really to do with Rhea at this point. And that's why they're going to put her in this matchup, because they have no ideas for Rhea Ripley at the moment. With that being said, I mean, as far as the matchup between Io, Bianca, and Rhea happening at WrestleMania, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Io Sky, retain the title. To be honest with you, and actually have a solid title run with the women's world title. I'm not against that at all. But I think that's my biggest stickler with Monday Night Raw last night is, I'm getting tired of the Rhea Ripley shit. To be honest, I feel like it's a forced agenda, forced narrative, just to have her on the card, just for her to be on the card, when it could have just been Bianca versus Io Sky, in my honest opinion. But, it is what it is. I digress. But, like I said, man, Monday Night Raw last night wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad show. I'm happy. Like I said, I can't be even more thrilled than I am now that they're finally doing something with the Jey Uso and Gunther situation. That storyline intensified a lot last night, considering what Gunther did to Jimmy, pretty much by beating the hell out of Jimmy Uso in the middle of the ring, like I said last week, was something that needed to happen to get fans intrigued in the matchup between Jey and Gunther. So I was happy about that. And I was really happy between John Cena and Cody Rhodes. That whole promo back and forth, that segment that they had between each other in the middle of the ring, I thought was great. I mean, we finally got an opportunity to see a back and forth, verbal fight there between John and Cody Rhodes. And, again, I mentioned this earlier. I know a lot of people were worried about how Cody Rhodes was going to handle, the microphone back and forth and the skills on the microphone with someone like John Cena. Because John Cena, I mean, he said it himself, and he has buried people just from that microphone. I mean, he's cut promos on people that has ruined their careers, literally, or had people thinking about their careers to a point where it's like, you know what, he might be right. I mean, this guy's been doing this for 25 years. I mean, this is not something where, he's fresh in the game right now. This is a walk in the park for John. John's been doing this for 25 years, multi-time world champion, and he's also wrestled in hostile crowds like he did against Rob Van Dam in ECW. So, he's a seasoned vet. And Cody Rhodes, yeah, he will get there, absolutely. And I think he's doing a phenomenal job with what he's been doing as of late with the Universal title. But, like I said, for those people out there that said, oh, well, I hope the bloodline shit goes away after this year's WrestleMania, I hope not. And it shouldn't, to be honest with you, because in my opinion, there's still one match to make. And that match to make is Cody Rhodes versus The Rock. And there's other factors to factor in with this shit as well. I mean, you look at someone like Jacob Fatu, which I think Fatu, is going to have a hell of a year for 2025. We are in April, in the beginning of the year, pretty much 3 months in, or 4 months in, and I can see him going after the world title. I mean, Jacob Fatu is one of those guys who's an indestructible force on SmackDown right now, and I can see him going after someone like Cody for that world title or something like that. So the Bloodline storyline and how it's going to, progress is going to go on for quite a while. I don't see that going anywhere anytime soon. And like I said, even after this matchup between Rhodes and John, I still see a matchup here happening down the line, or maybe next year's WrestleMania, between Cody Rhodes and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It's a match to make. It's a match that should happen. It needs to happen because that story is still yet to be unfinished. And it's Cody Rhodes taking on the final boss, man. It needs to happen. But with that being said, too, with John Cena not, from what I understand, not being, on the next couple of weeks of Raw, he's not televised at all. He's not being showcased on Raw for the next couple of weeks leading up to WrestleMania. It's going to be interesting and very telling what happens next after what happened between John and Cody happening for the next couple of weeks. And what's Rhodes going to say? Are we going to hear from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? Are we going to hear from John on the Titantron, via satellite? Who knows, but I don't want it to be as if, okay, well, we got that last night, which was fantastic, and then here we are backpedaling once again leading up to this year's WrestleMania. That I do not want to happen. I wanted them to keep the momentum on what they did last night and keep pushing that momentum until we get closer and closer to WrestleMania. By the time we get to WrestleMania, it's game on. It's game on. And that's really what it comes down to, ladies and gentlemen. It's storyline. There's a beginning, a middle, and the end. And, the beginning, it starts to sizzle a little bit. It starts to marinate. And then we get to the middle of that, it starts to sizzle. And then finally, you get the final plate of what you've been cooking. And that's where the storyline comes to an end. And that's why we're getting what we're getting now at this year's WrestleMania. Because, the storylines are starting to slowly intensify. Like I said, with Jey and Gunther, that needed to happen. I can't stress that enough on how much what Gunther did last night to Jimmy needed to fucking happen. That needed to happen. Because if we kept getting this same shit where Gunther is going to, choke out Jey and that's it, then this storyline is dead in the water. Dead in the water. But because of what Gunther did last night and the actions that happened last night, what he did to Jimmy, like I said, it's only going to intensify this story. And now because of what Gunther did to Jimmy, and Jay unfortunately happened to watch on, he made this shit personal. Good. I'm happy with that. Because we need to see a different side of Jay that we haven't seen before. A humble Jay. A Jay that knows what it's like to be at the bottom of the totem pole working his way up. That's the Jey Uso that we need. The underdog Jey Uso. Not the main event Jey Uso. We need the underdog Jey Uso that's willing to lay everything on the line when the night comes that he will face Gunther for that World Heavyweight title. That's the Jey Uso that we need. The Jey Uso that brought him to the dance. That's what we need. To go up against someone like Gunther. You know what I mean? And hopefully that's what we're getting to, towards leading up to this year's WrestleMania between Jay and Gunther. I know a lot of people, I mentioned this last week when it pertains to Jay and Gunther, that a lot of people were talking about, oh, well, Jay missed the tope and almost broke his neck when he jumped out of the ring, or he slipped in the middle of the ring, which allowed Gunther to, apply a sleeper hold on Jay, and then we're going to build the storyline off that. That's bullshit, to be honest with you. The storyline that you build off of is what happened last night. I don't want to hear, oh, well, we're going to build off the slip and the fall that, that Jey Uso had. That's bullshit. That's lazy-ass booking and lazy-ass storytelling. What you have last night is a story. What you had last night is something that you can really cook with for the next couple weeks. We see a different side of Jey Uso. And then when the night comes, WrestleMania Night 1, we get Jay versus Gunther for the World Heavyweight title, and we get a whole different type of Jey Uso walking in that arena in Las Vegas to go up against Gunther for that World Heavyweight title. That's what needs to happen. And I'm happy that, somebody was listening and actually, did what I asked as a fan. And, actually have Gunther beat the shit out of Jimmy, leaving him in a bloody mess in the middle of the ring while Jay is watching on. And I told you guys this last week that there needs to be some realism to this storyline, whether it's Gunther attacking Jimmy Uso and beating the shit out of Jimmy, or Rikishi somehow shows up, the Uso's father, and Gunther sees him backstage, and Gunther beats the piss out of Rikishi backstage, leaving him in a bloody mess, which makes it personal once again for Jey Uso. That was the thing that solidified the storyline between Gunther and Jay. Gunther needed to make it personal. And now that he did, and what he did last night, now it's personal. And now I want to see what the rebuttal is going to be from Jay. Because now, yeah, it's on now. For what he did to his brother, oh yeah, it's on now. So, and that's what we needed, man. We needed some realism into this storyline between Jay and Gunther. I don't want to see, oh, well, he slipped up, or he hit a tope out of the ring, or he slipped in the middle, and we're going to build a story off that. That's complete and utter bullshit. I'm sorry. That's lazy and lackadaisical booking. I'm sorry. Make it make sense, bro. And last night they made sense of it. Absolutely made sense of it. And I'm intrigued for next week's Raw and what Jay is going to do next. Is Jay going to take the handcuffs off and just be looking for Gunther no matter where he's at in the arena and start beating the piss out of Gunther, sending him a message? You want to make it personal? Well, here I am. That's what we need from Jay. And hopefully we get that for the next couple of weeks leading into this year's WrestleMania. And like I mentioned earlier, man, even with, besides the Jey Uso stuff, we had John Cena and Cody Rhodes. I wasn't against what happened last night. I think it was something that was desperately needed in the storyline between Rhodes and Cena. We finally get a verbal back and forth here between both Cena and Rhodes. And they both held their own, especially Cody Rhodes, man. Cody Rhodes is, he's in it to win it. You know what I mean? And honestly, I think that was one of the reasons why we didn't hear a verbal back and forth between John and Rhodes for a couple of weeks, because a lot of people, that I even talked to that were like, hey, man, I don't know if this is going to be a good thing for them to have a back and forth on the microphone here between Cena and Rhodes, because usually when John Cena gets on the microphone and he goes up against somebody for a high-profile matchup, 9 times out of 10, man, he usually buries the hell out of people on that microphone and makes them look like shit. So maybe this was something maybe that WWE was kind of worried about with John, that, John was going to get on the microphone and kind of bury their current undisputed champion, and how they were going to, work around that. And for what it's worth, I think it was successful last night between the verbal back and forth between John and Rhodes. Yeah, I do. Absolutely. And it showed me that Rhodes can hold his own, and that he's in it to win it, man. This is somebody that, he's willing to do whatever he can to walk out WrestleMania still the WWE Universal Champion. And John Cena is trying to do whatever he can to get under the skin of Cody Rhodes, to piss him off where he slips up. And that pretty much solidifies the deal for John Cena. And John Cena walks out WrestleMania 17-time world champion. And like I said, the match itself, man, there's a lot on the line for this matchup between John and Cody Rhodes. Rhodes can, get past John Cena and still walk out Universal Champion. Or on the flip side of the coin, John can beat Cody Rhodes, make history by becoming the 17-time World Heavyweight Champion, and now Rhodes would have to chase after John for an undisputed championship opportunity once again. So, there's still a lot of things up in the air leading up to this year's WrestleMania, but I will say for last night's Raw, they hit a home run last night. Maybe besides the main event, Monday Night Raw hit a home run last night, and I'm happy with it, man. I can't really say anything bad about the show last night. Like I told you guys last week, man, the WrestleMania fatigue was definitely sitting in because they really weren't going nowhere with the storylines. There was a lot of loopholes, and a lot of people, not just myself, bro, but a lot of people that I know of that, watch professional wrestling, they were already getting burnt out before WrestleMania even got here. And they were looking for something exciting and something new because nobody really was sinking their teeth into these storylines right now because there wasn't anything to really get invested on. And I think after what happened last night, I think WWE finally put their foot back on the gas pedal a little bit. And we're going to hopefully get more some interesting stuff here leading up to this year's WrestleMania, which I'm definitely excited for. But with that being said, though, this is my review of Monday Night Raw. I hope you guys are out there staying safe.